All right, guys, welcome back. We got a lot of work that is unfinished. Even though the main structure is up, most of the steel is done. The porch is now framed and sheathed. You guys saw that in the last video. We got a lot of loose ends to tie up now, and I think this video is gonna be basically all that. Last time, we kind of tied up the video, or tied up the ending without really showing a whole lot of porch details. A lot of you guys asked about that stuff, so we're gonna make sure we show a lot of that. What we're gonna do today, because we have started on the inside ceiling, I don't think you guys are gonna see that yet. You'll notice that we have house wrap that is kind of opened up. We need to take care of that because we're working on the ceiling in there at the same time, and I don't want rain or stuff to get in there. So we're trying to get all the steel covered up, get all the house wrap covered up before we kind of start on the porch. First thing we gotta do is we've got some connection trims. These are custom bent to the pitch of this roof. And this back leg is our flashing that's gonna go up against our wall, and then our steel will come up over it. So let's go ahead and get this started so that we can wrap up the exterior steel around the building. We've got a little scrap piece of steel, and that is because what we wanna do is find out exactly where this trim is supposed to be. So we're just gonna lay this steel on the porch like it would be here. And we're not gonna go super tight. I'm gonna make a mark. So once we have marks on both sides, we're actually gonna raise that up about 1/8 of an inch or so because we don't want it to be super tight onto our steel because we still have to fit some foam closures underneath this trim. Do you have your stapler on you?
It's in the front here. Or it's on the back. Right hot that like the ink starts oozing out of it, and then that's what over. Yep.
So right here, this is my exact point. I actually want to be a little bit higher than that because this trim needs to come out here and it needs to bend over my gable trim. I see your tape measure. Hey, look at this.
Yeah, I must say you have it.
I had a stapler in my pouch the whole time, and it had staples in it. What do you know? I'm gonna go 1.5 inches so I can get all the way out and get over top of this flat and get a nice little flashing detail there. So now we have a slit that our trim can go in. We got to bend up this trim. Oh, Greg, look at this. If I bend over, all the sweat is just coming right in front of my...
Pooling in your glasses. That's
Yeah.
gross.
Kind of, I would say it's very gross. So now we just want to give ourselves a nice little bend over. Yeah, that's going to be good. Okay, so now you can see I made sure that this was slit out into a flat so that water that comes down can run out over on top of this, instead of if this was back here, water would run right into my rib. So it's unfortunate. I didn't want this exactly here, but the only way to avoid that would be to change the framing size of the porch, and that doesn't always make sense either. So I can make this work with my trim. I got the whole piece. With this piece here, I'm gonna assume this to be pretty darn accurate. And I know you should never assume, but I think it's gonna be pretty close just because I've done it a couple times now and I'm guessing it's gonna be right. I'm gonna make a line, then I'm gonna come over about 1 inch, and I'm gonna make another line. See, once this is planed in like this, I can see where my hip is. I'm gonna make a line. What I'll do is cut this off, and I'm just gonna give this. That's gonna be hard to do. End of the day, it's gonna get covered up by hip anyway.
Hip and corner.
Yep, hip and corner. The only reason I'm doing this is basically I would always prefer to do like a metal flash versus rely on sealant. So I've got this kind of bent under, and then this guy is gonna be bent over top. Now this doesn't really line up right now because our steel's not under here, but once our steel comes under, these points are gonna be good. That's one little spot that possibly could get some water. We'll go ahead and take care of it now. Now, some people might say, well, Kyle, why don't you just wait till your steel is on the roof, then come up and set those trims exactly where they belong? And the problem is we try to keep, especially this is a black roof, we want to try to keep it nice and clean. We want to keep it free of scratches. So the more, not only the more we can stay off of it, the cleaner it stays, but also it's a lot safer to walk on the Weather Logic. It has like a kind of a grippy surface. So it's just altogether, I think, a better idea. So I'm just gonna open up this hem. Most of our trims have hems, so we can always do this sort of detail here. I'm just going to get this into this opened hem. Okay, push it, Greg. There we go. Perfect. Well, we won't be cleaning anything with that. You looked at it and kept going, dude. I don't.
Do stop and like run over and grab it?
It's exactly. You stop and say, hey, Kyle, before I go any further, do me a favor.
When I looked over, it was on the edge and it went,
Okay, that's not bad. All right. Well, at least we got this end covered up. Other than it being hot, it wasn't hard. Whenever I make a snap line on my steel, I always get most of the chalk off. That way, all I want is a nice little mark just on the high rib there, because these don't have punch rows. And then what I can do is just go right next to this mark and eyeball it. It's gonna be great. Nobody's gonna see it. And then we use orange chalk or pink because it comes off really easy. Come on. I know it's not good for my hand, guys, but it's so much easier when you're going through the metal and the double hemmed trim just to give, I'm not hitting hard. I'm just basically giving a little puncture, acting like a punch on the metal, and it makes my job so much easier instead of sitting there and just pushing hard. See, even when I have a punch on that piece of metal, the trims underneath are not punched. But if I just take this, it goes right in, nice and easy. Come on. There we go. This is our soffit J channel is what we call it. I'm gonna run it flush on the top of my cedar beam here, and I'm just gonna tack it in with a screw. So now we can just take our soffit, go right into here, and I like this because it kind of gives it a nice clean look. Here at our cedar. Really, soffit's pretty much a simple thing. Doesn't take a whole lot of thinking. That's why I'm doing it, and I'm letting Greg do something else. You know, I worked on a job site with a guy one time, and I had him doing my soffit for me. I was doing siding or getting siding laid out or something. This is back in my like residential days. Greg was there. This only goes back about, what, probably 10 years, Greg? Yeah, so about 10 years ago. So Greg was a young blood. He was not too well versed in the ways of doing soffits and fascias, so I didn't have him doing it. I had this guy that, bless his heart, I mean, he was a pretty good guy, but I found out that he could not comprehend how to cut a mitered soffit. It was pretty comical, wasn't it, Greg? Yeah. I mean, it was comical and frustrating at the same time. Yeah, looking back, but I think he ended up like messing it up like 3 times, and then I finally just said, dude, let me just cut it for you. Like, do the opposite of what you just did, and then he would do the same thing. It was pretty funny. So let's see if I can do this without totally looking like a fool. So what I always do whenever I have to cut a miter, I mean, I just put it up there, act like it's there. I mean, it seems kind of common, and the fact that this is a straight 45, it should be pretty easy. But before I cut this, so I don't get confused, I just take another piece while this might not end up being a perfect cut if like the first one isn't perfect, at least if I am off just ever so slightly, I'll know, okay, there's my line based off the old piece and it was maybe just a hair big or a hair small, and I can adjust. But now I should have these two pieces. You guys probably can't see this, but this is where my cut is gonna go, and I want a piece to come out of it and be basically a perfect, you know, I want it to line up with the same lines so that when you look at it, it you know, looks like it's kind of wrapped around or whatever. Looks like I'm right about in the middle. So in theory, if I cut this one in the middle back, I should be able to marry them together, and it should look pretty good. Seems pretty simple, doesn't it? Also, we're using steel soffit, not aluminum. Not that it's that hard to cut, but it's a little bit harder to cut than a piece of aluminum, but it also holds up a little bit better. It doesn't get all wavy and nasty. All right, so we got that guy in there. Let's get that tacked in. Okay, now let's go ahead and cut this guy. Of course, I don't have these up yet, but I think you can get kind of what I was looking to do. I'm gonna get my trims in there, but now I'm gonna be mitered evenly. So I can kind of play with this, get it adjusted to where it's right where it needs to be. And I think the goal is, you'll see, all these lines are coming out of a perfect 45 miter. So it's not that complicated, just kind of put the pieces up and look at it. My good buddy, if you're watching this, I bet you probably by now mastered this soffit because you're just that type of guy. Make sure it's good. Aha! But before we do that, we're thinking ahead. We're once again, because we know it's going to be good, line up two pieces. We should have a pretty good miter. I don't know what it looks like. It's hard to see from here, but I think it's pretty good.
I mean, I've seen better, but it's not bad. No one's ever gonna notice.
So when you say you seem better, you only mean that you've done better and...
Yeah, it's only off a little bit.
Okay. Okay, buddy. Whatever. Thanks for keeping me humble, man. More. Yep. All right, we're just getting set up with our porch roof steel. Yeah, this should be pretty easy. You guys know, anytime you're on a porch, basically there's no work to be done other than just lay the steel out because we've already squared everything up. So as long as we did our framing correctly, we can just make our marks and go to town. We don't have to straighten anything out like we do on the upper roof. It's all already done. So we're gonna get our steel up. We're gonna punch this since they're small, manageable sheets. You know what, I'll take 2 seconds to tell you because people always ask, why don't you guys punch your roof sheets when you're doing a roof? Well, because I can't just pick up a piece of steel and manage it as easily as a small roof piece on a porch. When we get into the longer pieces, I can give an end to Greg and then usually he has to pull it up the roof, which means that my hands, even if I'm wearing gloves, I get caught on those little punch holes or it causes scratches if it's dragging across other metal anytime. So we will punch a porch roof to get perfectly straight lines, but we never punch a upper roof section with long steel. Obviously, every time we punch, we want to make sure that the sheets are flush on the bottom. That's what we're gonna go off of. Nice chunk of wood. You can get them straightened out pretty quickly. All right, so once we have our eave flashing trim, this is gonna go over top of our fascia and our gutter will tuck up in here. So we know where our line is for our purlins, and that's kind of what we want to hit. Let's go 25 and 2.5 for our bottom row. Okay, I need 3 pieces, man. Well, there's one thing I know you're good at. That's exaggerating. Okay, just keep your hand.
Yep.
Oh yeah, that's actually not bad at all.
Ooh, that was a workout, dog.
Oh no, that's easy. Sometimes we can do this by ourselves. Just gotta keep wiggling it up. Come on, last one. Get up. There we go. Okay, now I gotta make sure that I'm lined up with the ribs up top. Perfect 1.5 inches. Wait, let me just see if I don't need you though. Because then next time I'll just have you do something else more productive. Because
you've done this by yourself before.
I mean, I'm perfectly lined up. I'm perfect down here. I'm on my mark. I'm at 1.5 inches. Go down, get yourself set up to cut steel. Why don't you be more efficient? We're gonna be the A team today,
That's
buddy.
what I was planning on, but I thought you needed me.
Well, I didn't. You know, everything's going perfect. What do you want me to do?
You lined up on the roof.
What, the next one?
You lined up there.
I'm perfect, dude.
Wall steel.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Never mind.
If I need you, I'll call you.
I'm gonna go home.
No, you're gonna go cut steel, bro.
I don't need you.
What if I need you right here, though?
I'm not going up there. In my mind, I'm already.
Oh, yes, I did it. Happy Monday. All right, these are the last full sheets. There's only these 3 full sheets. But now what we've got to do is cut this angle out. We know it's going to be a 46.5 degrees. We already did that math when we framed. So I'll give Greg a dimension where to cut. From the good rib, you're going to come over 2 inches. All right, let's see if this cut is good. I'm sure it's going to be close enough because we do have a big piece of hip cap that's going to go over it. But the important thing is that oh, that's going to be a little bit tricky. All right, I guess I'm climbing up. The important thing is that the angle's good, which, Greg, it is perfect. Yeah. Woo! Yeah, angle looks pretty good. So this is good. So right here, right there is my mark that I wanted to be on the edge of the sheet. So that's lying perfect. But you can see, you know what? This is gonna be fine, Greg. I might just have to trim a hair off. Everything is lining up very nicely. Once again, right on my mark. This is how you know that you did a good job framing, but not holding onto your screws. When you're using your math that you framed it with, or tried framing it with, and everything is just lining up really nice. I did take off about 1/8 of an inch on Greg's cut from this one just because I wanted to get it back behind this miter, not kind of overlap, but this will be fine. The important part for us is just everything laying out real nice and clean. That shows that we did a good job. And when we come back and do this side, our miters and everything, it should line up pretty good. All right, so now that we're on the other side, you'll actually notice we very quickly ran all these just regular standard sheets out because I'm gonna start down here and all my laps are going this way so they match all the laps on the wall, but it's very hard to start with a little tiny triangle piece and get it exactly how you want it and make sure everything is perfect. It's very easy, however, to start with a full long piece without any cuts and square it up and put it right where it belongs. And then what we can do is we'll just kind of work our way back into the miter tip. So this is my siphon rib. You'll see that because I've got the little long leg here. I'm just gonna tuck it underneath of this last sheet. We'll slide it up into place. And then what I need to do, it's very important to me. It really doesn't matter from a function standpoint, but it is very important to me that these ribs all line up very nice where the points come. And to be honest, that looks beautiful. I guess the whole lesson is just that make it easy on yourself. It's very easy to square up and get straight this first long piece and then just work back into the miter. You don't have to always work out of a, from the good rib to the siphon rib with a overlap good rib to the siphon rib. It does make it a little bit easier, but this is not hard, and I would rather deal with that than have to try to square out of a little tiny triangle. Well, look at that! My good buddy Juan. Hey Greg, look who decided to come to work today. Juan. Looks like Juan made it down. Juan is our insulator. Actually, he doesn't own Metro Insulation, but he works for Metro. He's been doing a lot of our buildings for I don't know how many years. We love Juan. In fact, Juan goes way back to one of my first build series in building a garage.
2017 or 16?
It might be 2018. Anyway, probably 5 or 6 years, Juan made an entrance into his YouTube world. And he told me that his daughter was very excited about that. Juan, what's up, dude?
Hey, what's up, boy?
We thought you weren't coming today, man. Looks to me like if I continue this line and this line, they meet up right here at the miter, right where I want it. So I think we're pretty good. Greg, one more, man. Just like you did it. It's perfect. Time for hip cap on our porch. And if you don't know what hip cap is, this right here, this long line where the two roof lines come together, that's a hip. And this is the cap. This is going to cover it. I've got to do some details so that it finishes off down here kind of nice. I'm just going to get it lined up right where I want it. Make a nice straight line where my roof line is. So all makes sense. Just a minute. So once I do that first bend right there, I like to put this back on actually, because I don't know the exact angle. So I want this just to be kind of straight. I'm just trying to make sure I like everything, and then I can kind of visualize right where this bend is. We're gonna bend that around. There, so now this just kind of hides this ugliness. So when you're looking at this, you're never gonna be able to see up here because there's gonna be a gutter here, but this is just to kind of pretty this up. I don't know if it's really worthwhile, but I think it is, and just to make it look a little nicer. I'm just gonna take this and see how this has got this nice stickiness to it. I'm gonna run it right up down the middle, and that's gonna prevent any wind-driven rain from going here, because the water's not going to travel up with capillary action. There's not going to be anywhere for it to travel up. It's going to be an open space, but I'm just preventing wind. And I think these are rated for, I think it's 110 or 130 mile an hour wind. So when that hip cap goes on, it's going to compress this down nice. I really want to find an even better way to do this, because the hip cap for me, I really have a problem, and I do not like when it gets oil canny. I know when we do our hidden fastener system, we don't have any of that problem, but with this system we do, so it's kind of a downfall. And honestly, most people probably don't even notice it. But my goal is always to try to find a way to make this as clean looking as possible. And by putting this foam here, instead of all the way out on the edges, I found that it does a little bit better job of hiding the oil can when you push a screw down and then it tries to compress here, it can make the steel bubble. I'm just going to eyeball center, make sure I'm kind of lined up top. I want to make sure that I'm good up top too, so I just need to see that this line goes all the way to my peak up there. I'm trying to do very minimal pushing because the more I push down, the more stress is on this piece and the more it'll oil can. All right. Okay, so now that we have those kind of locked in where they're gonna go, I need to get a measurement, cut my top piece, and then I'll join them and screw it off. There we go. Okay, so now what I need to do is just eyeball this line, make sure I'm still straight. Right about there probably. I think also this is the stuff that can make or break a building. So if it don't look right, you see it, and then people comment on it. And no, I'm not talking about social media comments. I'm talking about like people come in here, actual my customers, and they see it, and their friends and family, and people are like, oh, that looks weird. Yeah, the goal is you don't want people saying something looks weird. It just, you want it to hopefully fit in. I need to kind of evenly get this to lay down and try to not have as much oil can as possible. And it's gonna look pretty, it could look a little sketchy until it's all done. So what I try to do is just feel where kind of the worst of it is. And I'm gonna go on one side first. That way I know that that line is straight. As soon as I start pushing down over here, it can affect, this can get a little wavy. And you know what? The other thing is, most of the people are never gonna see it from this angle or this intimately to see some of the oil can or even care that there's a little oil can. It's just more or less me. I'm kind of weird like that. Feel where that is. Even gonna use my boot to keep it there. I don't know what it's looking like, but from my angle, it looks pretty decent right now. Obviously the goal is to keep it from getting water. So I don't know, that's a hip cap. I probably overthink it, but I don't know, looks pretty good to me, I think. As I say, it's good enough for the girls I run with. Yeah, clip that guy.